everybody doing? It's Thursday. It's time for Full Throttle Thursday. Alright, so, besides the weather, pretty rainy outside, still pretty cold, chilly in some spots, what we're also going to be seeing with the cars specifically is this thing with temperatures. We have to pay very close attention to the temperatures. In the last video, last week's Full Throttle Thursday, we talked about the tire pressure and why you don't want to set it to max temperature. And that's because we have to deal with changes in tire pressure with changes in temperature. So let's take a look at that change in temperature with the car and with the tires. But what we're going to do, we have to actually drive the car. So let's get right to doing some driving. This is the car that has been sitting about 6 hours. Pretty even, just about ambient air temperature. 43 I have for the temperature here, and the car is 43. Now back home, you can see the headlight that was on the whole trip. It's not warm, but 62. The tires. Look how warm the tires are compared to the car. And the brake. Look at the brake caliper and the brake disc. So even though this isn't warm at 65, compared to the rest of the car, which for reference there, just on the fender well, 49, 68 I think it said, and then going down the rest of the car. The rear, you can see, even though there's smaller brakes, it's still warmer. So it's about 30 degrees warmer. So let's open this up. And we'll take a look at some of the hot parts. Obviously, the intake should be just about air temperature. But here, the radiator hose, 180. Yeah, it feels hot to the touch there. You can even see my colder hands relative to the radiator hose when I touch it. Basically, my hand's trying to pull heat away. So it cools it down just for a little bit. And very deep in there. Can't really get a good glimpse on it there. That's part of the turbocharger. 295, I think I saw it peak at 296. Oil filter. The base of the oil filter is even pretty hot. So you have to keep in mind you don't want to inflate your tires to the max, because if you do and you start driving, it's going to go over the max because the tires heat up a little bit. So now, let's head back to the desk. Alright, so we have, from what you saw, the tires heating up. Now, the heating up of the tires really depends on exactly how hard you're driving. I didn't do any highway driving with very high speed, but that would actually give some more temperature increase or delta in the tires. So it was about, say, 40 degrees, and it went up to about 70 degrees, so about a 30 degrees Fahrenheit increase in these temperatures. Now, I specifically say Fahrenheit because we're going to be changing a little bit. Just for a quick explanation, we have the ideal gas law, and I'm going to put that up right over my shoulder, right over here. So we have P1 times V1 over T1. P1 V1 T1 equals P2 V2 over T2. So the pressure 1 times the volume, the first volume, divided by the first temperature will equal the second pressure times the second volume divided by the second temperature. So with that, we can assume constant volume because the volume of the tire isn't actually changing. What will be changing is the temperature and the pressure. So let's rearrange that right here. And this is what has been solved for our temperature with constant volume. So take a look at that. Now, in order to solve that, to solve the pressure, we have to figure out the temperature and the volume. Now, volume stays the same, so we can just get rid of that. That's why volume is not in that actual equation. And temperature, we know. We started at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. We're going to go to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. However, I have to change those Fahrenheit values to Celsius first, and then, for scientific purposes, we have to use what's called Kelvin. So I'm going to plug those Kelvin equivalent of Fahrenheit temperatures into this equation, and we'll have some numbers. Also, as a side note, it doesn't necessarily matter, but for also scientific purposes, I'm changing PSI to hectopascals. We talked about hectopascals before because 1 hectopascal equals 1 millibar. So when you see those numbers in hectopascals, you can think of them as millibars. Alright, so what I have up now are the values, the known variables, essentially. So we have P1, which was 36 psi, which from the last Full Throttle video, Full Throttle Thursday, I had my tires set to 36 psi, which is equivalent to 2482 hectopascals. Temperature 1 from today, when I checked it with the thermal footage, we had 40 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 4.4 Celsius, which is 277 Kelvin. T2. 70 degrees Fahrenheit, that's what the temperature of the tire was when I got home in the garage. That's equivalent to 21.1 Celsius, which is 294.1 Kelvin. So, those are the variables. This is what the equation looks like with those variables plugged in. And then solving for P2, we have 2,631 hectopascals, which is equivalent to 38 psi. So, let me take that down. Overall, a temperature delta, or a temperature change of 30 degrees, this is without highway driving, resulted in about a 2 psi increase in pressure. So it's not a lot, and if you do have highway driving instead of 30 degrees, maybe you have a 50 degree temperature change. So again, not a lot. That's just me saying, don't fill your tires to the maximum pressure. Because even in cold weather like this, you'll still get a pressure increase, and you don't want to deal with that. So that's where I set my tires to 36 psi. And according to this, at 40 degrees going to 70 degrees, 30 degree increase, I gained 2 psi in the tires. It also works the opposite way. If you set 36 psi in your tires during the summer when it may be 80 degrees Fahrenheit outside, that means if you drop 30 degrees or so, your tire pressure will drop. So you got to keep that in mind too. Overall, that wraps up this Full Throttle Thursday. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of a different style. This is a new series. Tell me what you think in the comments below. If you want to see more videos, hit that subscribe button below as well, and that bell icon so you get notified whenever I upload a video like this or I do go live. This is meteorologist Andrew Pinero. I will see you all in the next video.